M23 derives its name from the March 23, 2009 peace agreement between the National Congress for the Defense of the People, CNDP rebel group, and the DRC government. The 2009 treaty, which was signed following the arrest of CNDP leader General Laurent Nkunda, outlined several provisions, including the release of prisoners, the transformation of CNDP into a political party, the resettlement of refugees, and the integration of CNDP fighters into the Congolese army and government institutions. However, the deal was met with widespread opposition from sections of Congolese society. Many viewed CNDP leaders as war criminals and demanded their prosecution. Meanwhile, former CNDP fighters who had joined the Congolese army were accused of using their positions to control illicit mineral trade in eastern Congo. In 2012, after a fallout with the DRC government under the then-President Joseph Kabila, about 300 soldiers, mostly former CNDP fighters, broke away from the army to form the M23 rebel group. Citing poor conditions in the military and the government's failure to implement the March 23, 2009 peace agreement, M23 launched an armed rebellion against the government. On November 20, 2012, M23 fighters captured Goma, the capital of North Kivu Province. However, under pressure from the International Conference on the Great Lakes region, the group agreed to withdraw from the city in exchange for negotiations with the government. By late 2012, Congolese and United Nations troops had regained control of Goma, forcing M23 into a ceasefire. Around the same time, a United Nations report implicated Rwanda in supporting and commanding the M23 rebel group, an allegation Rwanda denied. For the first time, the DRC government and M23 leaders agreed to engage in formal peace talks. Negotiations were held in Kampala on multiple occasions throughout 2013, but the two sides failed to reach a deal. M23's key demands included the integration of its fighters into the Congolese army and the full implementation of the 2009 agreement, but the DRC government remained hesitant. Eventually, the Congolese army, with support from the United Nations Force Intervention Brigade, intensified its offensive and defeated M23 in November 2013. For several years, the group remained dormant until 2017, when a splinter faction resumed operations in eastern DRC, though with minimal impact at the time. In 2022, M23 launched a major offensive in eastern DRC, displacing thousands of civilians. That same year, the East African community initiated the Nairobi process aimed at mediating talks between the DRC government and M23. The East African community deployed a regional force to eastern Congo in November 2022 to facilitate the peace process. However, President Felix Tshisekedi's government accused the force of collaborating with the rebels and demanded their withdrawal. In December 2023, troops from the Southern African Development Community (SADC) replaced the East African Community Regional Force in eastern Congo. Meanwhile, diplomatic relations between DRC and Rwanda continued to deteriorate, with Kinshasa accusing Kigali of backing M23 rebels, a charge Rwanda has repeatedly denied. In response, the African Union appointed Angolan President João Lourenço to mediate the crisis. He held several rounds of discussions, including direct talks between Rwandan President Paul Kagame and DRC President Felix Tshisekedi. Both leaders agreed to a ceasefire in mid-2024, but the truce collapsed almost immediately. Now, fresh fighting has erupted, and M23 has once again taken control of Goma. DRC continues to accuse Rwanda of supporting the rebel group, escalating tensions between the two nations. Regional leaders had planned to convene on Wednesday to mediate the conflict between Kinshasa and Kigali, but with the situation worsening, a lasting solution remains uncertain. Meanwhile, the United Nations has called for an immediate ceasefire, but so far there are no signs of de-escalation. As the crisis in eastern DRC deepens, prospects for a peaceful settlement remain bleak, given that past mediation efforts have largely failed. For now, the DRC government faces an uphill battle to reclaim Goma and restore stability in Africa's second largest country. Daniel Kibet, NTV.